Okay, we are live. Hey guys, it's 2 out of 3 of your BYWG team. It's Dr. Mike, Dr. Noah, and today we have a really, really cool, basically article review. And why I really find this to be particularly exciting is it's something that we're asking you all to do. One of my patients 3 or 4 months ago gave me this article and said, "Hey, Dr. No, I think you'll really like this." And I absolutely loved it. I shared it with a lot of people. I spoke on it at a couple different platforms. And I said, Mike, we need to talk about this with our chiropractic patients and our BYWG tribe. So we're going to do that today. And the article is from the BBC Futures, which I think is a English publication, Mike, right? Out of
BBC.
Europe.
Yep.
Yeah, BBC, right? And it's the article is how modern life is transforming the human skeleton. So this has to do with a lot of anthropologists. It has a lot to do with observation, but most importantly, it has to do with what we're doing on a day in and day out basis that's actually transforming the shape of our spines. Now, our spine and our body and we as humans are made to adapt. In fact, if we didn't adapt, we wouldn't be here right now. And our bones are no different. We have osteoblasts, build bone, and we have osteoclast or clastic properties that break down bone. And this building and breaking down happens every day, every moment of our life. In fact, if one of those components is working faster than the other, you get weak bone. It could be breaking down or building. So if you put abnormal pressures on your spine in a particular area, you're going to get weird things happening. And vice versa, if you put the appropriate amount of pressures on your spine, you're going to get strong bone. And that's what these people were finding. And 3 things they found were, number 1, a horn on the back of people's heads, which is kind of crazy, narrowing of people's elbows, or children's elbows specifically, and the narrowing and crowding of the jaw, and that creates a whole host of problems. Mike, I mean, we talk about osteoporosis and osteopenia often in our office, and anatomy-wise, can you explain this horn a little bit? Because it's really not the horn; it's just really the EOP, or the external occipital protuberance in the back of our head. But that's actually starting to grow or get bigger in people.
So if you take your hand and you go to the back of your head, you'll find that there's a bump there. Now the interesting thing, and that bump, I haven't touched the back of a chimpanzee's or an ape or a gorilla, but I am certain that bump is there for them as well. The really fascinating part of this article is that bump appears to be growing a tail, like a horn. So that's mind-boggling, and the question now becomes, why is that happening? And that's the gist of the article that you're talking about. The interesting thing, and there's a bunch of theories around that, isn't there, Noah?
Yeah, I mean, primarily it is forward or anterior head posture that's being fast-forwarded lightning speed through computer use and cell phone use.
So I want to show you what most times people don't quite understand it. If I turn to the side, can you see that? Am I in the picture?
Yeah, perfect.
And then my head's like this. Can you see that?
Perfect.
Okay, that's forward head posture. And you combine that with looking down at your handheld device, and now you can see all the strain is here and here. So that is what we're talking about.
Right. Like, so anatomically, you have the 7 bones in your neck, and you have all ligaments and muscles and tendons that run right up your neck and literally attach to that EOP. Now, like Mike just beautifully demonstrated, if your head is forward and down, those tendons are constantly pulling, constantly pulling, constantly pulling on that little nub, and that nub is getting bigger, and it's forming, literally forming horns. I've seen some more recently in the office taking x-rays bigger than I've ever seen before. Now, we're only talking about millimeters, but as this progresses over time, that's going to get bigger. An example of our human skeleton changing. And that is not a good well, it is a necessary adaptive change, but it is not a good adaptive change. We don't need a larger EOP. We need a normal EOP with our head balanced over our shoulders, nice posture, no forward head posture. And this is a topic for another day, but forward head posture decreases lung capacity, decreases nerve function, decreases heart health. So it's much more devastating than just a little bump growing in the on the back of your head. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I was agreeing with you.
I was just going to move to the next topic, and that's shrinking elbows. Now, a German anthropologist, and this is in the article as well, obviously, was studying children and noticed that kids in Germany's elbows were shrinking or getting smaller. And ultimately, his conclusion is that this new generation of kids are, by and large, couch potatoes. They're not. They're sitting way too much. They're video gaming too much. They're not getting out and playing and running around. Not only sports, just being outside, right, and not being sitting. And that's incredibly fascinating. The other part that came out of that as well is that, yes, he suggested that kids need to exercise, but there seems to be almost a direct correlation between how much one actually walks a day to their shrinking elbows and their bone structure, to where evolutionarily we seem to be able to walk 30 kilometers or 19 miles a day. So his point is we need to be walking a whole heck of a lot more, and that includes children as well.
This is one of the things that we talk about in the office to our patients every day. Beyond your wildest dreams, you're getting some pushback now with the media about this 10,000 steps a day, not rule, but goal to shoot for, and coming out of the origins of this came out of a company in Japan that in the 60s made a pedometer, and they said, well, let's make up 10,000. And the numbers are actually higher from what I've been reading, in that those steps should be in the 14 to 17,000 steps a day. But we've become modern society has become so stagnant and so sedentary that I tell people we have to move. We have to move. Now you think about, I don't know how it was with you, Noah, but after school as a child, we couldn't wait to get outside, and it didn't matter what the weather was, didn't matter the time of year, and we got to play until dinner, until literally your mother called you in, out on the stoop and called you in. We made up games. We played kick the can. We played manhunt. We played box ball, football, baseball, basketball, all of it. Yeah, all of it. And we were always moving. It was very interesting the other day. My daughter, who plays soccer, kept her Apple Watch on while she was at a camp, and she took a picture of what the amount that she had run, and it was 13 miles. and this is what we would do on a regular basis almost every day. And that's gone. Like, the kids do not. It's very rare that kids actually go to the park and play, or go for a walk or exercise. They're in the house now. It's amazing.
Yeah, Mike, I got to interrupt you a little bit and say we have our first official BYWG comment of a live listener.
All right.
And it's Jennifer. So I don't know if you could see that. I could see that because I'm the moderator today. Yes. But I responded back, hey, Jennifer. You know Jennifer very well, Mike.
Oh, there we go. Hey, Jen. How are you? I can see
So,
it. Live comments. There we go.
so super exciting. But that's what this guy, this German anthropologist, has been noting. And I call bull crap on this 10,000, not 10,000 steps being too much and 6,000 steps being. I totally disagree.
Yep.
And it appears evolutionarily it's more like 19,000 or
Yep.
30 kilometers. So that I think we all stand in agreement there. The third finding that they discussed in this article, she feels famous. She says, "I love you guys. Thanks. We love you too." The third part of the article was, and it's actually, we've had two podcasts on this exact topic in Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. One from Dr. Barry Rayfield, and the other one from Dr. Paul Ehrlich. I forget the book. The book is something called Jaw. It's Jaw. I forget, but there's two podcasts, and it's modern life, not chewing, not using our jaw, a lack of breastfeeding is causing a smaller lower jaw, a lower jaw recession, a dental crowding, and it's causing problems later in life like sleep apnea. But there's, when we first started practice, Mike, sleep apnea was only found in people that were extremely overweight. Now they're identifying it in children because of this recession in the jaw, a smaller jaw and teeth. In fact, people think like, we all have had our wisdom teeth pulled out. But in fact, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago or more, wisdom teeth actually fit in our mouths and they never had to be removed. So that's just another example of how a lack of chewing, and this may sound funny, but I highly recommend that you guys chew hard things. In ancestral cultures, the mother would give the young child a huge hunk of sugar cane, not for the sugar, and it was a little sweet, so the kid would like it. But the little kid would chew and chew and work on it and work on it and work that jaw muscle, work the masseters, build a strong bone, raise that jaw forward, build strong teeth, and it would last forever. If you look at pictures, some of the Weston A. Price things with the dental decay, you'll also see people with these enormously robust lower jaws. And now we're getting, I can't do it, obviously, these receding jaws. And, Mike, very well how devastating sleep apnea and lack of oxygenation is as we grow, as for kids, obviously, and as we grow older as adults.
Well, the interesting thing is that, in doing all of our reading, is sleep apnea in children, like you said, was never heard of before. And now we're actually seeing sleep apnea in kids. And I think that is extremely indicative of modern society. In that rush, I mean, you have two kids as well as I do, and they're extremely active, and it's always a hustle bustle to get to the next activity. So people are not taking the time to sit down and have a meal. And it always interested me, when we go to, we'll go to PF Chang's to eat, and they give you chopsticks, and you can't shovel food in your face with chopsticks. you literally, you have to sit and honor the meal and take your time. And that's a really good practice. It forces you to be present when you're eating, which we really enjoy.
Right. So before we get into the strategies on what you can do to avoid this or stop this from happening, remember, it's a lengthening or a horn in the back of your head. It is a shrinking of the elbows and a smaller jaw. So those things are, and I'm sure there are more things that they can identify as well. I actually believe the entire human is getting smaller. Isn't that correct too, Mike? Like literally?
I think skeletally we're getting smaller, but I think if you look at the population, we're bigger
Right.
body wise than we've ever been.
Skeletal wise.
Skeletal wise, yeah,
for sure. So there are a lot of things you can do to avoid or help mitigate these issues or potential concerns, and we already talked about one: walk. It's very hard to determine how many steps 10,000 are unless you have some a tracking device. So Mike and I are very, very fond of tracking devices, and we use different ones, but we both use tracking devices, from the BioStrap to the Whoop to the Fitbit.
You could have your phone. Your phone,
Yeah.
if you keep your phone on you, it has that ability to track your steps.
Right, right. Mike and I are both primarily certified to coach in that framework too, and they talk a lot about primal movement exercises, and that would be, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and planks. Those are a really good idea for strength building using your own body weight. We are a huge fans of things like yoga or Pilates or any movement-based type exercises. Do you have any thoughts on that too? Because you're an exercise physiologist too, Mike.
Yeah, it really comes down to just moving, and you don't need to join a gym, and you don't need all fancy equipment. And literally, you can use your body weight to do calisthenics, push-ups, pull-ups, jumping jacks, mountain climbers, planks. You can do and get a really good workout. You know it needs to start with baby steps. We become so sedentary that let's just start moving, start walking. You need a good shoe or a good sneaker, and just get out in the nature and move.
Yeah, totally agree. And of course, and this article didn't touch upon that, but nutrition and eating, a really nutrient dense, low inflammatory diet is really, really important. So you provide your body with the raw materials to create those real strong, healthy bones. That's the reason why we created one of our supplements called Bone Health Plus 2 to help support people in this. But the bottom line is that our skeletons are changing, our bodies are changing, because negatively, not positively, because we're supposed to change positively, but they're changing negatively by basically and essentially a lack of motion, a lack of movement, a lack of mobility. So if we can encourage you to do one thing, is to in 2020 is put a high level of priority and precedent on exercising and moving your body and paying attention to your posture. Because we didn't mention the word posture, but this is really all about posture too, particularly the first one. And one of the first interviews we ever did was with Esther Gokhale, and she has a whole program on improving posture. And that's really that's a huge part of it as well.
Yeah, one of the just a little cross promotion here. Noah and I also have Health Coaching Academy, which we're live every Tuesday. And a little cross promotion here is next Tuesday we'll be talking about our favorite books. And I got to tell you, one of the most comprehensive books that I've read is called F Your Feelings, with the full word in there, not F. And what this author brought up, Ryan Muncie, was that if you do computer work and you do a lot of screen work, you should adhere to a 20-20-20 rule. 20 minutes of screen time, 20 seconds to stand up, and 20 seconds to look in the distance, and blink your eyes to kind of reset your what are called rods and cones in your eyes, because you want to not get that eye fatigue, which leads to the forward head tilt. So it was a really good, great book, my favorite, and we'll be talking about that on Tuesday. So look for us.
Excellent. Now, the final talking point, and it can't be overlooked, is chiropractic, what Mike and I and Wanda Lee do on a day in and day out basis. We see weakened bone structure every day. We see forward head posture every day. We see the negative effects of forward head posture. We see the little EOP growing, and we work really hard with our patients through the chiropractic adjustment and specific exercises, and just simply making them aware on a day in and day out basis how important this is for their overall health. Like I mentioned before, breathing, heart function. It goes well beyond just pain and pain syndromes.
It really does. I'm being completely honest here. It's hard for me to understand how people don't get adjusted, because when I don't get adjusted if I go a week or two without getting checked. I don't need to be adjusted every week, but I get checked every week. I'm fortunate enough to have 4 other chiros in the office. But I can see as a 54-year-old, my range of motion starts to decrease. And I guess people just get used to living that way. And if you think about your grandparents, when they were walking, how they kind of shuffled, that gait, that normal gait that they had kind of got less and less and less over time. But I notice a dramatic difference, and I very rarely have pain. And when I do, the first thing my go to is get adjusted. But number one, but really range of motion and keeping my joints, like any joint can be adjusted. Number one, but range of motion is so important as our population starts aging, to keep that range of motion healthy and vibrant. And that's what I notice the most for myself. I don't know about you, Noah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So think about which type of exercise that you like to do most and do it. It could be simply walking. I love to walk. I do my primal exercises. I run a little bit, and I do yoga on a regular basis. And Mike has his own routines, and of course we get adjusted and we pay close attention to our posture. So check the article out yourself. It's BBC Futures. How what am I saying? How modern life is transforming the human skeleton. It was probably my favorite article of the year. It's a little bit more comprehensive than we discussed today, but I highly recommend you go and check it out.
All right.
All righty.
I
Well,
got nothing else.
be awesome, never unawesome. Look for us next week and have a awesome, blessed day.
Ciao.